Just getting fired up on the Facebook world. Hi, I'm Allison. This is day of the 5-day focus on really sensible self-care. And today it's all about let's get some movement. Let's do some moving today. So I thought we would do a little upper body session. And one of the things I love about the upper body is that because it's the magic of how our bodies are connected, moving your upper body is helpful for your hips. Moving your upper body is helpful for your core. Moving your upper body is helpful for your neck and your head, right? Because everything is connected. Hello, Annette, you're here. You made it. I'm waving at you. So I thought we could just start with a little self-observation moment. Oh, and it worked, you're in, yay. Full disclosure, my mic is about to die. I have very little charge on my battery on my microphone, which is going to make a difference to you guys on Instagram, not so much on Facebook. I have an external microphone on my laptop. So if I get super quiet, let me know and I'll start yelling a little bit more. So start with just feeling, just taking your attention into your upper body. You don't need to change anything. This is not about doing it right or wrong. This is not about whether you're doing a good job or a bad job with your upper body. This is just noticing where might you have spots that feel good? Where might you have spots that feel less good? What degree of tension are you holding in different parts of your upper body that you might not need, right? If you're sitting upright, you need a certain amount of tension. You need a certain amount of energy and electricity going through your muscles to keep you upright and awake. But do you have more than you need? So take that little moment to observe where, hi Sarah, to observe where you might have excess tension that you could let go of. So for me, that means often there's some tension in here that I could abandon, that I don't actually need to use. You may find as you let go of layers of tension that parts of your body move. So you can just let your head roll forward, or you can let your shoulders roll forward. You don't need to be holding yourself in good posture. And then bring your hands to the sides of your ribs and just start to shift a little bit from side to side. Just easing back and forth. And then move your hands a little higher up your ribs. Maybe see if you can make some circles. And then circle the other way. And just notice as you do that circling, how does that feel? Where is that coming from? Can you feel your ribs shifting and changing position into your hands? Do you feel like it's kind of uncomfy in your back or your neck or, I don't know, your toes or something in case you're using your feet to anchor you in the floor? See if you can think of like a barrel ring around the outside of your rib cage, and you're just easing each part of your rib cage into that barrel ring. So you've got an external image to pay attention to. And then reset. Bring your hand onto your chest and bring your hand onto the kind of the bottom of your rib cage. And lift your chest up into your hands and then slide back down. And I think a lot of us are really familiar with this idea of lifting up, right? Heart opening in the yoga world, extension in the Pilates world. But it's important to also relax and open up that space across the middle of your back, across the base of your ribs and your sort of your upper low back. So do a couple of those. And your goal is to find a way to move that feels really good or that feels as good as you are inclined to get. And if something doesn't feel great, I would always suggest before you think, well, I just don't move that way. I'm just a person that can't do that movement well or can't do that movement comfortably. Make the movement as tiny and as small as you possibly can. and see if that feels better. It might be that you're a person who can't do that big movement yet today, but that you absolutely can do that movement. It's not about being able to do it or not. It's about being able to do it at a particular scale. And can you ease your body in different ways that feel good and feel nourishing and feel supportive? And then you can let your chest relax into whatever feels like your sort of natural sitting position. And let's take a look at your shoulders. So reach your arms forward so your palms are touching, and then slide your arms out to your sides. And just feel what happens. Where does that go for you? Do you feel stuff happening in the tops of your shoulders? Do you feel stuff happening in the fronts of your shoulders? What's going on with your shoulder blades and your spine? Just slide your arms back and forth. Nice and gentle. We're not looking for a big workout today. We're just looking for this kind of embodied somatic awareness experience of movement. Ease open and ease closed. And so if having your arms up at shoulder height doesn't work for you, bring them down. Same thing. If you think about taking this movement and making it smaller and smaller, how does that feel? So even if your arms feel great at this height, bring them down so that they're kind of pointing at the floor. Draw them together and slide them apart. And draw them together and slide them apart. A couple more times. Most exciting movement opportunity of the day, right? Except if you spend a lot of time at a computer, or if you spend a lot of time on your phone, this kind of gentle flow that's not a force and it's not a jam and it's not a jar and it's not a have to is actually a fantastic way to counteract all of that forward time, right? Really good for your shoulders, good for your arms. So now let's play with some rotations. So have one arm hanging down towards the floor and make a fist. Make it strong and deliberately press your arm down. And then right from the top of your arm, turn in and turn out. And your goal is to explore, not move, so you're not kind of turning like this, where your whole body is moving. You're really going to try and focus on that inside of your, like where your arm meets your shoulder. This is like the best body language experience where you're like, what language do you speak? What language do you speak? Let's see if we can find a way to connect and have your arm and your shoulder girdle, which is your shoulders and your collarbones and your arm, all talking to each other in a language that they all understand. And then bring your arm up and forward a little bit and do the same thing. Turn from your upper arm, turn in and turn out, and turn in and turn out. And maybe turn your head and have your head in a couple of different positions and see how that changes and affects the movement of your arm in your shoulder socket. And then come on back to center, let that arm hang down. And before you do the other side, just notice, how does that feel now from side to side? I'm a big fan of before and after comparisons and side to side comparisons, because one of the ways that we gain value, the way we like assign value to a movement, is if it works, is if it's effective and we feel that there's been a difference created, that we've gained something from the movement. And with these kind of smaller, more embodied somatic awareness moves, mindful movement stuff, you kind of have to take a moment to notice the difference and to notice the effect, because it can be, the movements can be so small. But I don't know about you, I feel like the arm that I've done is hanging closer to the floor, and you can actually see it is closer to the floor. Like my shoulder is higher on the one side that I haven't done yet. So make a fist, actively press your arm down to the floor. So you're not just hanging, it's not kind of an ease down. You are deliberately pressing down to whatever angle feels good to you. And then right from the top of your arm, where your arm meets your shoulder socket, play around with this internal and external rotation. So things that you could notice would include, is this different from the way it felt on the other side? You could notice, are you actually turning from the top of your arm? Or does your brain really want to turn from your hand and your fist? What happens if you ask your brain to create the movement in your upper arm? Does it feel better? Does it feel worse? Does it feel different? Is it harder? Is it easier? And can you explore that without judgment, without telling yourself you're doing it wrong? There's no better or worse here. It's just you sitting in your place and me sitting in my place, and I can't see you moving. So you could be juggling for all I know. So it's not about performance. This isn't about doing something right. It's just about an exploration of what happens when you ask your brain to do a particular movement. And the answer might be your brain goes, I don't know. I don't know how to move from there. In which case, awesome, you've learned something. You've learned something about the way your brain and your body connect, and that this particular motion, this internal and external rotation at your shoulder joint, is something you could play with. And frame it that way, rather than, oh, this is something I can't do. And again, if it feels like you can't do it, slide it back. See if you can move 1 millimeter. Because it might not be that you can't do it. It's just that at the moment, you can't do it in the range that your brain thinks you need to use. So bring your arm a little forward and a little up and continue to do the same thing. It's interesting that, so for those of you who are on my newsletter list, I sent out an email today talking about the book Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, which is one of my total favorites. He's just the most charming writer, and his work is super delightful and super accessible. And he's all about habit, like his thing is behavior design and building habits. But his thing is you need to start the habit tiny, really, 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 really small. You anchor it to something you already do, and then you congratulate yourself and you celebrate when you do the thing. And one of the things I love about his strategy is that that's how I also approach movement. I think there's huge value, huge developmental growth-based value in doing really tiny things, but doing them with awareness and doing them with a sense of celebration that, oh my God, I did an awesome thing. I did an awesome thing by figuring out that, no, I can't do this much turn without moving all the rest of my body. And that's a way of moving that's integrating a bunch of different joints and parts. But I can't do it without moving the rest of my body. Well, I bet you can, but I bet you can if you make it really, really tiny. And there's huge value in little tiny celebratory, non-judgmental movement. All right, so now let's do another one. Bring your, I don't know if you can see me very well at that. Let me go here. Dun, dun, dun. So you're gonna bend your elbows and you're gonna tuck your elbows in towards the side of your waist. And you're going to keep your arms pretty vertical and your hands nice and energetic. So even when we're doing this kind of somatic awareness, mindful movement stuff, it doesn't all have to be relaxed and flowy, right? Like this could also be about mindful strength. So hands nice and strong, and then turn. Again, you're turning from your upper arms where they meet your shoulder joint, and you're exploring. And this time, specifically think about your shoulder blades. So for lots of us, when we do this movement, the shoulder blades also pull towards the spine. So I'm going to turn around. Facebook, you're not going to be able to hear me so well, I don't think. We'll give it a try. Instagram, you're good. So when we pull, when we turn the backs of our arms, for lots of us, the shoulder blades also pull together. So start with just explore. Is that you? When you rotate your upper arms in this position, do your shoulder blades pull towards your spine? And so let's see if we can do it so that your shoulder blades do not pull towards your spine. So relax your arms, move around, like fully just seaweed your body, move your shoulder blades, pull them together, slide them apart, roll them up and down. Get your brain kind of connecting to where they are on your back. Like, hey brain, I would like to introduce you to my shoulder blades. Shoulder blades, this is my brain. So once you have a sense of where they are, deliberately Reach your thumbs to the side, turn your upper arms, pull your shoulder blades together, and feel for what happens when you do that. And it will be a little different for everybody. For lots of us, but not necessarily for everyone, what happens is your whole arm pulls back and your body pushes forward, right? And again, this is sort of an integration of multiple joints, of multiple parts, and it can be quite a lovely way to move. But there's another way to do this, which is to keep your shoulder blades stable. They'll rotate slightly, but see where can you go without moving your shoulder blades. And again, this is not a right, wrong. This is not, you can't fail this. There's no pass fail on this. It's just an exploration of if this, then that. If I do this, then what happens? What's the movement corollary to doing one thing and then doing something else? So the if this, then that of this particular motion is, if I keep my shoulder blades really nicely settled on my rib cage, how far can I turn my arms? That's it. There's no, and the answer is typically going to be not as far, right? I like to use a piano image. So if you imagine a really big piano, and the piano needs to get pushed down the street, and you have 4 people doing the pushing, and they're all pushing the piano together, it's going to move reasonably easily. It's going to move fairly far, and it's going to move pretty quickly. If you have one poor sod doing the pushing all by themselves, the piano is going to move, but it's not going to move very far, and it's not going to move very fast. So if you have your shoulder joints and your scapular joints pushing the piano at the same time, and then you bring a bunch of thoracic vertebrae into play, then absolutely your piano is going to move far and fast. Your whole body is going to go together. Whoosh, really big, lovely movement. If you keep everybody else still and you have only your shoulder rotators pushing the piano, it's going to go not as far and not as fast. It's that, like, there's no right or wrong. And if you have to push that piano, you recruit everybody. You call everyone you know to push the piano. So if you need to do something big and strong and fast, you want that integration of many parts moving together and using all kinds of different strategies to get the job done. But that works better if you've also spent some time exploring having one person move the piano, or in this case, one set of muscle joints externally rotating you at your shoulder joint. Okay, let your arms rest. Okay, so if you now go back and just sort of feel, how's it going in your shoulders? How's it going in your chest? Bring your hands back onto your ribs and come back to your rib circling. So for those of you who weren't here earlier, we started with this idea of keeping the idea of a ring around the base of your ribs, and that you're trying to slide your rib cage around and make contact with that barrel ring all the way around your ribs. So you could think of a couple of things. If you were here at the beginning, you could see if this feels different than it did the first time. You could also start to refine your awareness. So if you've got this imaginary barrel ring and you're moving your ribs around, it's not uncommon that it's easier to make contact with the ring smoothly in one section of your movement than it is in the other. So see if you can figure out, is there a spot where you're not as easily making contact with the ring, and then just stay in that spot, right? And it's like you're kind of trying to sand the inside of the ring with your ribs. Just smoothing and easing and getting rid of any little splinters there might be on the inside of the ring. You're just easing it back and forth, and then go back into the full circling. And then change directions. Same thing. Is there a spot where you are more or less adept, more or less comfortable, more or less connected? And then you pause and you come to center. And you let your arms hang down, and you put one hand on your chest, and then breathe. I don't care how you breathe. Make it a nice, easy breath, but you can breathe through your nose, you can breathe through your mouth, whatever feels most comfortable for you. Let your head roll forward, let your shoulders roll forward. Take a moment to really just think about the breathing instead of, whatever else might be coming up in your day. Feel the backs of your ribs expand as though they were opening towards that imaginary barrel ring. And last breath. And then you can relax and you can settle and you can get ready for the rest of your day. Thank you for joining me. Does anybody have any questions? Questions about why we would bother doing this kind of sort of small mindful movement? Questions about how that felt in your own body? Anything that occurs to you? I'm assuming I can see the questions today. Sometimes I can and sometimes I can't. It's always a little interesting. All right. Love the small movements. Yeah, I do. So I can see the comments. Excellent. I do too. And I feel like doing the small movements is what makes it possible for me to do the big movements and to do them well and to do them in ways that feel good. Right? Small things prep us. Yes, to explain why. Okay, so such a good question. We all have movement habits, right? So we all have ways that we move. This is not the grammar. Oh, that's so nice. The grammar of true fluency in movement. So nice. We have extrinsic muscles and intrinsic muscles. Extrinsic muscles are the big kind of surfacey muscles, and intrinsic muscles are the ones closest to your joints, closest into center. And we all have movement patterns, and our brains go to those patterns easily. And for many of us, those movement habits tend to be related to the bigger surface muscles, to bigger movements. So that's one part. And the other part is we tend to not move a lot, and we don't tend to move with a lot of subtle movements, and we tend to just kind of hold into the same places. So if your body is accustomed to holding into the same place because you have a job where you have to sit and then you sit for your leisure time, or you like to do really big movements, so you're a runner and a cyclist, we have these two extremes of very little movement and then very big movement. But your brain and your body, they respond really well to connect. Let me rephrase. I'm going to retrench on that. We need to have access to all of the movements, including the little ones that are harder to find. But because we have this habit of big movements and no movements, we don't have a habit and a pattern that's easy to access of the small movements. So we kind of have to practice them. And it's useful to really think about the little movements, because when you think about something, it's easier to pattern it. It's easier to learn it. It's easier for your brain to create a new movement or a new pattern or a new habit. And we have to embed that. So you can sort of think of small mindful movement as a searchlight. And by doing that small movement, your brain shines a big searchlight on that area, and that helps to build it into your awareness. It's not easy to explain it to people who aren't familiar with the purpose. That is correct. I would say the short, like the elevator answer, is working on small mindful movement adds those movements to your movement vocabulary. I love that Annette and I have the same kind of idea of movement as language. I think of these as all the little useful connectors that make your movement elegant. So if you were to talk without using any of the little connecting words, you could still get message across. People understand what say, but it's not if you don't speak a language, you can make yourself understood. But that fluence and elegancy comes from all the little connecting words that we don't really think about all that much. But they are what make what we say more elegant. So I think of these as the little movements that connect the big movements. On a practical level, you are building strength in the intrinsic muscle structures. You are bringing circulation to the joints, deeper into the joints, so that if you do so earlier when I was saying it's like the multiple people pushing the piano, if you always are doing the big movements, you're always dividing the movement amongst multiple joints. And you will, because our bodies and our biology is designed to conserve energy and to save calories at all costs, which made sense when we were hunter-gatherers living in a time when we had to work really hard to access calories. We are intended to move in the easiest ways possible, which is fine when you're moving really well all the time and you move to go and you walk and you hike and you pick and you carry heavy stuff and you're using all your muscles and all your joints all the time just to survive. We don't do that. And so, let's see, I've lost my train of thought again. Oh yeah. So you'll go to your habits, and those habits will tend to miss the joints and the muscles that you don't have a habit for, that you don't have a pattern for, that you don't normally use. So if you want to start using all of the joints so that when you go into the big movement, each joint, each muscle is contributing equally, you have to go in and deliberately wake up the blind spots, the ones that you don't use normally. That was a much longer explanation than you were probably looking for. Did it answer your question? Does that make sense, Dawn? I hope so. Okay, so as I mentioned in the email this morning, it's so helpful for the disassociated. Yeah. And as an added bonus, I am not a mental health professional in any way, shape, or form, but I do work with people who manage anxiety and depression and things, because that's many, many humans these days. And I find that the mindful movement approach, the small exploratory approach that helps you to kind of settle in and make contact with your brain and your body, they can be very helpful for people who are experiencing, some degree of lack of connection to their bodies, and it's very settling. So that is also a useful strategy. Trauma is also a big part of movement, or movement can be a big part of helping people who are managing trauma. My colleague Marta Stuthers speaks very eloquently about this, and you can find on YouTube. I believe it's there as a replay. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll post a link in the comments below. We had a great conversation about movement and trauma, which, if that's part of your practice, might be helpful for you. And for anybody who's a movement teacher, movement professional, body worker, if anybody is considering joining the membership, we will be doing this kind, not always like this, but some of this kind of movement in the membership, which is starting up next month. And we will get together once a month for a 1-hour movement session that will be about you being able to just settle in and enjoy your own movement and your own body. Because I know that for many of us as movement teachers, every time we do a movement thing, it's kind of about, how would I teach that? And I need to learn this. And there's something performative about it. And I need to, I'm in a public forum and I need to do it really well because I'm a movement teacher and I don't want anyone to judge me, or, any of the things that go on in the backs of our heads. And so this will be an opportunity for us to just move together in community in ways that are about nourishing and supporting our own practices, because I think that's an important part of being a movement teacher. So we need to have a good solid movement practice. So thanks for coming. I got to head out. It's been a half hour of delightful time with you. Nice to chat, Dawn. And Annette, I'm really glad you actually made it. Excellent. So tomorrow, Tomorrow is the last day of the 5-day focus, and tomorrow we're talking about boundaries and energy, our own energy, making sure that we're kind of protecting our own energy stores and what strategies we can use to keep our boundaries solid, but in ways that feel respectful of the other people with whom we are having those boundaries. And that'll be our wrap up so that we head into September with lots of energy. You're so welcome, Dawn. Lots of energy and lots of ability to carry on into what is hopefully going to eventually be a post-pandemic world at some point, where we're working with live people and being able to have the energy to do that. So thanks for coming. As always, if you have questions afterwards, pop them into the comments. I will be going in and checking on any comments that come up later, or if you're watching the replay. See you later. And goodbye to Facebook.